Tantalus Entertainment presents the Killer Score Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to the newest episode of Killer Score. We've been on a more of an extended break than usual, not long as some, but obligations of life call. But we're back here for the final episode of the year, which will be a New Year's themed episode. As let's face it, Christmas is a bit overplayed. It's a bit overplayed, you know. Everyone else is doing Christmas stuff. I thought it'd be fun to do New Year's and run my little experiment that I mentioned at the end of Eternal Sunshine. So once again, we are the Killer Score Podcast. I am your host, Daulton Morrison. You can find me online under Sick Jacket Man on a bunch of places.
I am Erin Murray. I am from witchandcrafts.com. Speaking of Witch and Crafts, thank you to everyone who showed up at the Shawnee High School Craft Show this past Sunday. It was awesome. We had a great time. We made some good money. And I will hand it over to Richie.
Richard Eckert here, Richard's Rad Voices. Reachable underneath my Twitter handle, Richard F. Eckert, Rich F. Eckert, my YouTube channel, Richard Eckert, and all sorts of collaborative projects. And jumping off of Erin's point right there, I'd like to thank everyone who took time to watch the promo video that I did for Witch and Crafts Craft Show. I'm told it's done a lot of good for her, and it doubles as some good samples of my commercial abilities, so anyone who wants to see that and an upcoming collaborative project in the form of a comic dub may come to my channel, and you will probably see that project within the week. But bringing it back to our lovely ringleader over here and his pitch for this New Year's episode.
So, the year, for context, of this film, the film is set in 1999 at the turn of the millennium. This film was released in 1996. And for context, I've been a Doctor Who fan for about a decade, I want to say, or a little more. I got into it around the end of middle school, going into high school, and started from the revival series and occasionally dipped into the classic. Doctor Who started in 1963, ended in 1989, although the BBC has and still insists to this day it was just a hiatus. And at that point, the show had been on a downward spiral for a while, with a great upswing in quality towards the end once Andrew Cartmel took over as the showrunner. But sadly, it wasn't enough for the BBC to care. They saw the ratings, and they just kind of slashed it, which led to what a lot of Doctor Who fans have referred to as the Wilderness Era. The Wilderness Era refers to the era when Doctor Who wasn't syndicated anymore, and fans were basically scraping for content. The only thing that came out before this feature film was, aside from some, books and audio dramas and comics, was a awful anniversary special for Doctor Who's 40th anniversary, which people do not like to talk about. Or was it 30th anniversary? 30th anniversary.
30th.
Which was the awful, was Dimensions in Time?
Yeah, Dimensions in Time was a crossover thing with EastEnders.
Yeah.
Which, if you're unaware, is a long-running British soap opera.
And it's the only Doctor Who special, or even thing that they've released in televised form that is completely non-canonical. That's how bad it was, which is sad because it's the last on-screen appearance of John Pertwee as the Third Doctor, but it was just a mess. So essentially, a few years later, they got the idea to try to revive Doctor Who, but specifically market it towards the Americans, because it had a bit of a cult following in America, mostly from reruns on various CBS affiliate stations of the Fourth Doctor era.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the fun little bit of trivia for everyone, The Horror of Fangrock, a Fourth Doctor episode, is what was playing and what was interrupted when the Max Headroom broadcast happened.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that would be a fun little bit of trivia. So they brought in this guy named Jeffrey Sachs to try to do the revival and direct it. Jeffrey Sachs is a long-running British filmographer who's done a lot of stuff. For more recent stuff, people might know him for the movie Frankie and Alice. He's mostly well known for his TV work, though. He's done a lot of British shows over the years, like The New Statesman, Lovejoy, and for more recent stuff, Us. But he got a few composers. None of the composers from the original TV show returned for this film. The film had 3 composers, one of which I can't really find a lot of credited work for, John Sponsler. But John Debney has done a lot of music scores for Disney. Probably his most well-known score is the one he won a Academy Award for, which was The Passion of the Christ. He did the music for that. Mm-hmm. And Louis Febvre, who did the compositional work for Smallville.
Huh.
So there is already some American TV stuff bleeding in here. But, of course, they still used a lot of British actors and the like. And the film was meant to try to market it towards an American audience, but they made some curious decisions. For one, they wanted to try to completely reboot it at first. This film had a troubled production.
As is often the case with our stuff.
Yeah.
They wanted to reboot it completely. Pretty much everyone disagreed with that. And they were like, okay, how are we going to continue? And they thought, okay, well, we'll just leave off where the McCoy era ended. And we're going to do a time skip. That was what everyone decided. But they decided they still wanted to make it fresh for an American audience so that McCoy would start the film, but the Doctor would regenerate early on. And American audiences would be introduced to the very beautiful, very pretty, and cherubic almost faced Paul McGann playing the 8th Doctor part. And essentially take the Doctor in a new direction. Still the same character, but a bit softer, a bit more romantic than previous versions, much more of the wanderlust even than other incarnations.
And essentially, as Dalton had alluded to in both this and Eternal Sunshine, he decided that this episode would be very much an experiment to see if that reach for an American audience uninitiated to Doctor Who would work. The uninitiated, in this case, being me. I will admit that my knowledge of Doctor Who is cursory at best. I know that he essentially reincarnates every couple of seasons. I know that he's a time-traveling cosmic being.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard of some of the alien concepts, like the Daleks, who are basically robot shell Nazis, and the Cybermen, and it all sounds like really pulpy sci-fi stuff that's right up my alley, but that is the extent of my knowledge. Everything that I've learned thus far has been from these two.
Yeah.
And another thing that I was going to mention, I realized I just sound like Columbo. One more thing.
One more thing.
Yeah.
That wasn't a bad Columbo, I just said.
That wasn't a bad Columbo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This was, as Dalton mentioned, was when Doctor Who was basically on a hiatus, because quote-unquote hiatus.
Yeah.
But if Paul McGann's face looks familiar to you, and you watch a lot of BBC dramas, his brother is Stephen McGann, who's also an actor.
Yeah.
If you've ever watched Call the Midwife, yeah, that's Dr. Turner.
My American brain hurts.
Another thing is that since this really didn't garner that much of an audience, and also for many reasons, one of them being is that it aired at the same time of, what was it, like
the finale of the second to last season of Roseanne, which was the one of the biggest television shows on the planet and in America at that point. And for context for those unaware, that was an episode that had a lot of hype built up to it. Not only was a wedding episode, that was the episode where Dan has a heart attack. So there was a lot of like drama surrounding that episode. People didn't know about the heart attack going in, but they knew, oh my god, it's the wedding episode of Roseanne, season finale. So people are going into that. Apparently the reason Fox wanted to pick this up is because they were like, well,
We have the X-Files.
we have the X-Files. That's a science fiction series. That's doing gangbusters.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance? I mean, those two are sci-fi shows, but I'm going...
They're completely different.
Yeah.
They're different tone-wise and aesthetic-wise, from what I can tell, right, Dalton?
Because the X-Files is essentially a sci-fi police procedural, essentially. Mm-hmm. And Doctor Who is... Well, it depends on who the showrunner is.
Yeah, because the spin-off of Doctor Who that was done in, what was it, 2006 or 2007? Torchwood?
Yeah, Torchwood, yep.
Yeah, 2006. Was also like a sci-fi police procedural. For the first 2 seasons, we don't talk about Children of Earth or Miracle Day.
But it also didn't star the Doctor.
But it didn't star the Doctor. It was a spin-off concerning other characters, Jack Harkness and his team. Another Doctor Who spin-off, which still makes me cry to this day, is the Sarah Jane Adventures. If you don't know, the actress who plays Sarah Jane, Elizabeth Sladen, she passed away a few years ago from cancer. Sorry, brought this down again.
Erin, bringing things down? Never.
And
Shut up.
What's funny, though, is this also wasn't their first attempt to try to, like, market Doctor Who to an American audience. There's the very bizarre Peter Cushing films, which
Oh, jeez.
Doctor Who fans either have a we don't talk about that sort of mentality about it, or they're like, that was a weird thing, wasn't it?
I'm in the we don't talk about that party.
I'm in the that was a weird thing party because...
In other words, keep talking about it.
Yeah. Let me put it this way. Peter Cushing played the Doctor. It wasn't established why they just call him the Doctor, because he wasn't even an alien in this version. He was a human inventor who made a time-space machine who had 2 grandkids.
So basically we're in the Chronicles of Narnia, kind of.
It's weird, but didn't do too well. Doctor Who fans hated it, but now they kind of look back on it with a bit of, like, some fondness. That movie did do some good things. It's responsible partially for improved Dalek designs, believe it or not.
Really?
I did not know that.
Yeah, because because they made new Daleks for the film instead of using the BBC's. Mm-hmm. And some of those new improved Dalek models were used in the classic series after that. Specifically, you can actually see the Dalek models they used for the movie and in the episode The Chase.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, those the Daleks you see in there, they're actually the ones from the movie because the BBC needed more Daleks for incidental shots. So they got the ones from the movies, and they actually started to use the ones from the movies for a while there because they were really well crafted.
Another thing I was going to mention, I haven't seen this Doctor Who TV movie the whole way through. I've seen bits and pieces here and there.
Oh, you've never seen the whole thing?
No, my dad had a file download of it years ago. I watched a bit of the beginning and some bits here and there. I wasn't really fully paying attention because I was like 11. But the one thing I do appreciate is, as someone who loves steampunk aesthetic, the design of the interior of the TARDIS, from what I remember, was very steampunk.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they even kind of allude to one of the big inspirations for steampunk in general. There's 2 scenes where the Doctor is shown reading the Time Machine. Funny little joke there.
Ah, an H.G. Wells inspiration. I'm already in love. I mean, I haven't even seen this, and I can already tell that even if it takes me a while to get into this, like you two currently are, it'll be a cool thing. Because, like I said, you might notice I'm a bit quieter for a little bit for now, but that's only because I'm just...
You don't have a lot of context. Yeah.
I don't have the most context. These are the 2 experts here. Like, I can only imagine that the 2 of you are kind of looking at me the same way I looked at you with the whole
Near Dark.
every Western ever made that I show them. It's like, How's it feel to be out of your element, Rich? How's it feel?
Yeah. So, as I alluded to, we're basically going to do an experiment. Richie is going to essentially be like the target, because he would be a good target audience for this kind of a program. So, we're going to see if it would work for someone like him, if he happened to be, alive enough to be part of like the experience, if he had been like a young adult during the time, if it would have been something that made him go, oh man, I gotta check this Doctor Who thing out.
For context, like I said, they had kind of primed me for this with some secondhand knowledge, and it helps that I'm already a sci-fi geek who likes all sorts of pulpy stuff and is actually working on his own bits of sci-fi stories himself, wink. And it helps that I like things like Fallout and, to a lesser extent, Firefly and Star Wars and all sorts of stuff. And this seems to be Cowboy Bebop, especially. How the hell did I not put that at the top of my list? And this seems to be leaning in. Like, Doctor Who seems to have a same sort of spot and tone, sci-fi wise, as like Valerian or Flash Gordon. Something bordering on space opera with like grand, like, and like a grand umbrella of sci-fi. So
Okay.
yeah, I think I'm a good person to target this to.
Yeah, interesting take from someone who hasn't quite seen it, but just like got the stuff. It'll be interesting to see if Richie's perception that way holds up. But no, so we're gonna take a look at Paul McGann's only full televised adventure, with a little exception of a mini-sode later down the line, much later down the line. And we're gonna see how marketing it towards the American audience, adding in American stuff. It's the first Doctor Who adventure to be set entirely in the United States. The film takes place in San Francisco. And also bringing in some fairly popular American actors. Eric Roberts, for example, is the villain in the film. And we will be back to you after watching the film to see what everyone's thoughts are. Hey everybody, we're back. Having just viewed, I believe this was only my second time viewing this. I viewed this on a rental through Netflix a while, years ago, back when I still had the mail rental service, when I still did that with them.
Wow, that was a while ago.
Yeah, they still do it. They still do it.
I forgot that they still did that.
And I just found a gray hair in the shower this morning. Holy shit.
So,
I
yeah.
found several because I'm just remembering movies I got from Blockbuster.
Oof. So, yeah, no, it's still solid. You can see a decent amount of the blueprint in this for the revival series that came 9 years after this. And there's some stuff that really doesn't work, some stuff that's clearly the American influences on the product that are a little too just not Doctor Who enough, in my opinion. But overall, really solid. I still think Paul McGann would have been a fantastic full tenure Doctor. People would have loved him, I think. And shame he didn't get a bigger shake, but there's always Big Finish if you want to see more Paul McGann as the 8th Doctor, and a little appearance he had later down the line. Still hoping they bring him back for the 60th anniversary special. But that's my thoughts on the film. Let's pass it off to you guys, see what you thought about it.
I enjoyed the film. As I mentioned before, I'd only seen a few clips here and there, including the regeneration scene and the first kiss scene and all that stuff. But that's just what you can find on YouTube back in late 2008. Just showed my age there too. No, I really enjoyed it. Another thing I was gonna say is, I agree with Daulton about how we should have gotten more Paul McGann in Doctor Who, because I really enjoyed him as a Doctor. When we were about to watch the movie, we were actually discussing different actors who were originally, not originally, but the actors they had in mind to play the Doctor and the Master in this. And some of them were like, okay, that's too expensive, or like they wanted it to be American, or they want to do this, that, or the other thing. The American one of the choices that they were thinking of doing was Tom Hanks. And we're like, Tom Hanks is a great actor, but no.
He's no he would not be able to do the Doctor justice.
He is not the Doctor. And we also did show Richie how much work goes into playing the Doctor, and this is in a less than 90-minute special. It's an hour and 24 minutes. I was actually paying attention to the little time card thing. But a lot of work goes into playing the Doctor, which is why they are always so careful when it comes to casting in Doctor Who. But I will hand it over to Richie to give his thoughts as a newcomer to Doctor Who.
Alright, so I actually really enjoyed this movie. Corniness and little lore hiccups and all. I can very much tell that some liberties were taken, judging by some of the inconsistencies in the movie and from the hints given to me by my much more well-versed co-host. But as a primer to Doctor Who, I can say very much that this was a successful one. I had fun becoming initiated, as it were. I had fun with this Doctor. I had fun with the supporting cast, and even this movie's take on the Master, even though I can tell this is sort of a better in other appearances sort of case with him.
Yeah.
This is the only... This, until recently, was also the only ever appearance of the Eric Roberts Master. They did recently bring him back for Big Finish, shockingly enough.
Oh.
Yeah. For those unaware, I did mention Big Finish. Big Finish is a production company that the BBC has hired before and has like an official relationship with. They create audio dramas for Doctor Who, and the Big Finish audio dramas, unless otherwise stated, are considered canonical. So if you want to listen to anything with like Paul McGann as the Eighth Doctor, your best bet is probably the Big Finish audios.
And if you're unfamiliar with what an audio drama is, it's something between a radio play and a podcast.
Yeah.
And getting back a bit to first impressions and stuff, Daulton had sort of walked me through some of the lore stuff, as did Erin, and going in, they had primed me to the fact that the Master, the villain of this film, and Doctor Who as a whole, as far as I can tell, has this really interesting dynamic with the Doctor across all portrayals, in that it's a sort of
Use the word enemy mine when we were talking about it when we were watching it.
enemy mine, that refers to when they're united by a common threat, but there's like a respect, like a friendly rivalry sort of thing that goes on between them, despite the fact that they are diametrically opposed, both philosophically and in terms of goals. And as a primer to that, this is great. There are so many things to love, from Paul McGann's performance as the Eighth Doctor to the climactic moments where that sort of dynamic is established. Are spoilers a concern for this, would you say?
I mean, not really, considering that, you know, you don't have a series to go into after this. Like, it just does a big time skip if you just do televised stuff, so I'm not worrying too much about spoilers on this one, because I did this, as I said, as an experiment to see if this would have worked for someone, like, going in the way intended.
And unfamiliar to Doctor Who.
Yeah. But if you're going to start the actual series, I don't recommend this as a starting point. If you're curious about the Eighth Doctor, watch it. But honestly, I always say, if you're unfamiliar, just do what I did and what a lot of people do. Put on the revival series. Start at the very beginning.
Which is interesting because the first episode of Doctor Who I ever watched was actually Blink, which was in season 3 of the revival series.
Also a good starter.
It's also a great starter, because I remember watching my dad watch it, and I was like, oh, is this a horror movie or something? He's like, no, it's Doctor Who. And then we watch it together. I'm like, oh, this is really good. And then it just went from there, and here I am.
So, oh wow, that's some trivia for you later. So, speaking as someone who is very much a newcomer, I'll say that, like, I don't know if it's because I've got some bias thanks to being really close friends with the two of you.
Yeah.
But I was interested. Like, maybe if I didn't have you guys as primers, I would have been a bit more lost, and maybe it's just because I'm a massive nerd for this particular brand of sci-fi and speculative fiction. But speaking as someone who loved really pulpy sci-fi stuff like the likes of Valerian, I like this. I'm talking about the comics in this case, not the movie, the Rush Job. But they have a lot of interesting angles as far as time travel is concerned. Angles that I heard are a bit better fleshed out in the revival series because of that weird moment where turning back time worked inside the TARDIS.
Yeah, it does not work like that.
Well, movie's got a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, for how time travel works best in the show, Father's Day is probably the best one.
It's an episode in season 1 of the revival series, basically showing that if you mess with time go mess with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like,
Ooh,
I'm...
sorry. Sorry to cut you off. Actually, probably the best one, I would say, to showcase the actual effects of time travel, considering Father's Day kind of ditched one of the specific angles.
That's true.
I would say probably the best one to show how time travel works in Doctor Who is probably the Fires of Pompeii, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they tried to, like, change and stop Pompeii.
Yeah.
And it was doomed to happen no matter what.
Yeah,
fixed. But you can make minor changes.
You can make little changes.
Make little changes and save some people. Because, I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember off the top of my head what the exact quote was. But basically, you can... Time in Doctor Who is moreover not like... As they say in the show, not a straight line of cause to effect, but more like a big ball of wibbly wobbly timey wimey stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what that clip was about.
Yeah.
So
that basically is just saying that time is all over the place.
It's flexible to an extent. Yeah. There are certain things that
are fixed points in time that cannot be changed.
That's led to one of the only canonical deaths of the Doctor's companions, because he ended up dying in an incident that would have been trying to stop his death would have just screwed over
just
time
screwed
completely.
Everything.
Yeah, it would have basically stopped humans from inhabiting the Earth.
Yeah, because his death accidentally caused like the meteor strike that killed the dinosaurs. It wasn't a meteor, it was a spaceship.
Also, finally, a use of Buffy talk that isn't mind-numbing and eye-rolling. It's about time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it helps that the Doctor has like a very scatterbrained thing, so he tries to like explain things in a way that like people will understand, but then he realizes, wait, no, that doesn't make any sense.
Oh, I guess you would have to resort to thingy speak in order to really get
explain
those
the
concepts
complexities
across.
of space-time.
Yeah, because in the same episode with wibbly wobbly timey wimey is another thing is this is what was it, the toaster thing that was like I can't remember the name of the object. Do you remember?
What?
In Blink?
It's been a while since I've seen Blink.
Okay, but basically it was just like it goes ding when there's stuff.
Oh, that's not from Blink.
I thought it was.
No, that's from the 50th anniversary special.
No, it's the 10th Doctor episode from...
Yeah, the 50th anniversary special. That's That's the device he makes when he's trying to track The Zygons. That's the device he makes when he's trying to track the Zygons.
That was a reference to a previous episode.
Yeah, but it wasn't that episode. That was also that was also reference to the Easter special.
Oh, the Easter special, not Blink. Thank you.
Yeah, with Lady Cassandra.
Yeah.
With the
I thought it was Katarina.
Lady Katarina. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our listeners, you are not seeing this, but I was seeing a lot of gears turn in there. It was fascinating to watch as they put together all the strings.
We're Doctor Who nerds,
Yeah,
okay? And
we're
I
complete Whovians.
haven't even seen like most of the classic series.
I've seen maybe 12 episodes of the classic series.
For reference, I've seen the entirety of the Fifth Doctor series, the entirety of the Sixth Doctor series, working my way through 7, gonna work back and watch all of 3 or 4. I wish I could watch all of 1 and 2.
But the BBC had a trashing policy,
Yeah.
so a lot of episodes are missing.
The reason I tell people to start from the revival series is because you cannot have a pure watching experience of the classic series. It's literally impossible because there's 97 missing episodes of the classic series.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. It mostly affects the Second Doctor era. Most of the first and second season of the Second Doctor is completely lost.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, for example, a very prominent serial from the Second Doctor's era was
The Highlanders.
The Highlanders, which is the introduction of Jamie McCrimmon.
Yeah, which is actually
is gone.
Yeah, his first series, his second serial, which introduces Jamie McCrimmon, the most important companion for the Second Doctor, gone.
That's nuts.
And if you want to know about
you think that's bad? All of it, only bits of bits of film remain from his introductory serial.
Also, if you want to know the worst of the BBC trashing policy, there's 2 things. One, the first season of Avengers is gone. Yes, the spy series from the 60s.
Iconic series.
The one that got the really shitty adaptation.
Yes.
Yeah.
first
That's gone.
season gone.
The entire first season is gone. And also, they had to fight the BBC and, like, literally the Crown had to fight to not get rid of the coronation.
All right, PSA from Killer Score. Always back up your files, kids.
Yes.
Yes.
And they almost, for years, it was assumed that the majority of one of Britain's most popular sitcoms of, like all time, Dad's Army, most of it was lost for a while.
Yeah.
So, getting back to the movie a bit, because
Yeah.
we do
Went off on a little diatribe. Yeah.
we
A
do
very
some
long diatribe.
that is the fun of this show,
Yes.
but I'm not sure I got through all my points. I love first off the tone. I like that it included the Seventh Doctor just to establish, hey, this is
How this works.
this is how this works. It was a cool primer. I like how they have completely distinct looking TARDIS interiors to set up the TARDIS as something that changes depending on the Doctor. Because, as alluded to by my co-hosts,
Kind of.
it depends.
Yeah. Like, for example, first and second Doctor, same TARDIS interior. Third Doctor, they changed up the TARDIS interior for a bit there before going back to the older look. Most of the classic series has very similar TARDIS interiors with a few exceptions.
And
the revival series changes every few seasons.
Yeah. It's the same for all of the Davies era, which encompasses the 9th and 10th Doctor. It changed every few seasons with Moffat.
And then it changed again with Chibnall.
Yeah.
So, here they change it between these two Doctors.
They don't. They don't.
Well, in the movie, they didn't change it at all.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, no,
'Cause
that was another section of the TARDIS.
Oh.
The Eye of Harmony is another section of the TARDIS.
Pardon my French for a second, but that whole ship is a giant mind fuck.
Yeah.
Yes.
Depending on when it is, there may or may not be a pool in it. That's how big the TARDIS is.
Yeah, because in some episodes they do reference that there's a swimming pool, they don't actually show it, I don't think.
Yeah, they've never shown it, and the swimming pool always ends up causing trouble in the TARDIS. They always have to dump it.
Richie.exe is rebooting currently.
Yeah, another thing with the TARDIS is that the Doctor can, or the TARDIS can add and get rid of rooms at will.
Yeah, it's... In fact, the best way they ever explained it is the TARDIS actually is, like... It's a living being, but it also functions a lot of ways like our computers do, where you can, like, add or delete programs or stuff, which are entire rooms in the TARDIS.
That's trippy.
Yeah.
In fact, it's dimensionally transcendental.
In fact, there's a cute little mini-sode where the 5th Doctor ends up, like, teleported into the 10th Doctor's TARDIS, and, like, they have to, like, work along with each other. And when the 5th Doctor is, like, messing around, like, with the TARDIS console, it takes him a second to realize that the TARDIS is completely different. And he looks around and he goes, "Oh, you changed the wallpaper to coral? I hate this one. And it's better than the zebra print."
It's like when my brother gets on my laptop and just starts messing with shit.
Yeah.
Well, another example is every time a previous Doctor steps into a new Doctor's TARDIS,
They hate it.
They hate it.
They hate it.
And it's just like, I don't like it.
Yeah.
So, I like the design of this TARDIS. Speaking
It's
as someone...
one of my favorites.
It's my favorite.
It's like, as
That's
Daulton
right.
had said while we were watching it, he brought up an obvious parallel to H.G. Wells, who, conveniently enough, the time machine appears at the very beginning, and the 7th Doctor is reading it. But I also pointed out that there seemed to have been some Gothic influence, which
Yes.
plays into this movie's thematic resonance with how revivals and regeneration works.
Yeah. In fact, I was about to say before, I didn't want to interrupt the movie, this isn't the first heavily Gothic influence on the show. If you like that, Richie, there's an era of the 4th Doctor you would really like, known as, I believe, the Hinchcliffe era. I think
Hinchcliffe?
so. Yeah, the Hinchcliffe era, which whenever fans say the blank era, it refers to the showrunner who was running it.
Yeah.
The Hinchcliffe era is the heavily Gothic horror influenced era of the Doctor. Basically a lot of homages to stuff like Frankenstein, vampire fiction, all sorts of cool stuff.
Speaking of Frankenstein, there's a great moment during the regeneration scene where he's in the morgue and he is going through the process, and there's some great Kuleshov effect moments going on as characters are watching the Frankenstein movie. As he opens his eyes, it cuts to Dr. Frankenstein going, "It's alive!"
Yeah.
And he comes out stumbling out like the monster does, and it's the type of verisimilitude that can be seen as ham-fisted in more grounded works, but here
And something as fantastical as this, it works.
it plays out perfectly.
And let me
Oh,
just
yeah.
say, Debney did an amazing job with the score.
Yes, he did.
I think that his work on this was phenomenal, and I think Murray Gold looked at this and used this as a blueprint for the revival series.
Oh, absolutely. You
Yeah.
can tell when you listen to, like, the score of this and the score of, say, like, season 1 of the revival series. And you're like, I see the similarities.
And it's interesting that this guy also did the score for TNG because there's
Moments that feel very TNG.
very Star
Yeah.
Trek, and it's a nice middle ground that wouldn't be surprised that if it worked for American audiences, easing them into the Doctor Who sound identity while also bringing something pretty familiar as far as sci-fi goes for American audiences.
Would have worked even better if they were able to go through their plans, because two considerations for the Master were Jonathan Frakes and Patrick Stewart.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had talked about that. So, the sidecast, even like the one-off characters in this, are really good too.
Oh yeah, I love Chang Li and Grace. They're great.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
smaller though, I found out why we like that one kind of portly mortician so much.
I thought he looked familiar.
That's Will Sasso.
That's Will Sasso?
Yeah,
Oh.
I just looked it up. That's Will Sasso.
I was like, I feel like this guy's been in some really good stuff, and sure enough, it's Will Sasso.
Like, what a start! Like,
Oh, yeah.
Like, I think it's funny because we were like, I hope he was in other stuff. Like, I hope he made it big.
Yeah.
It's Will Sasso.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he did well for himself.
I have mixed thoughts on that Three Stooges movie, but I will not deny that the guys
him as Curly, perfect casting.
Him
yeah.
as Curly was perfect. The other two guys were great too.
Oh yeah. I gotta say too, this is just something from fan standpoint because he's a personal favorite of mine. From the brief appearance, what did you think of the Seventh Doctor?
I love him.
Yeah.
I want to hug him.
Yeah.
He seems like a dapper chap.
Oh yeah, you would love him. They didn't get to show it as much in this outfit, but his specifically his main outfit for the main series is Jay Gatsby inspired. He went for a very 1920s era.
Oh, I can see it. He's got like the pork pie hat and the scarf and the coat.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is, this was something you saw in the classic series a lot, but you don't really see in the rival series. And this is something, if you do want to get into Doctor Who and you watch the classic series, the question mark is very
A character motif. Yeah.
It's a character motif, and you see it a lot throughout the classic series with the different outfits of the Doctor, especially 5, 6, and 7.
Yeah, it was added at the end of the Fourth Doctor era. That's where they first started adding the question marks and the collar. Yeah, okay. That's where they first started adding the question marks and the collar.
Sorry.
The very last season of the Fourth Doctor is when the show got taken over by John Nathan Turner, which was the beginning of the decline because of various factors. Most people blame John Nathan Turner for very good reasons. Probably the biggest being he was a huge fan of stunt casting, which led to some less than stellar episodes quite a few times. Reduced budgets, him being obsessed with branding the show in certain ways. That's why the question mark thing showed up.
Someone keep him away from mainstream animated movies.
Another thing I was going to mention is, I lost my train of thought. No, with the question mark, there's a running joke amongst Doctor Who fans about the show having a low budget. Obviously, the budget has gotten bigger as the series went on. Certain episodes look better than other ones. But there was even a joke in the British Who's line where Stephen Fry picks up some bubble wrap and says, I know the BBC doesn't give us a budget, but how are we going to make 12 Doctor Who monsters out of this?
Yeah. But the question mark is still loved by fans in many ways. I have a soft spot for it. They actually do reference it in the Revival series. I forget which episode it is, but one thing... they mentioned that the 12th Doctor has boxers with question marks on them.
Or pants, as they're known over there.
Yeah. But
That's actually a conversation we had, because Richie said something like, I need underwear. I'm like, you mean pants? And he was like, what? I'm like, well, pants are underwear, trousers are pants.
yeah.
It gets confusing.
So, Ben, if you hear this, I'm learning a lot about where you live, so shout out to you, buddy.
Same goes to Artie. If you're listening to this, Richie's learning a lot about the UK.
So one thing I will say about this that I appreciated that was part of the classic series, hasn't really carried over to the rival series, is the interesting range of dynamics from where companions come from. Grace and Chang-Li were clearly intended to probably be the companions if a show got picked up fully. Chang-Li is an Asian American kid from a bad background who has no family they establish and is part of a street gang. And Grace is a well-off, celebrated cardiologist for a big hospital in San Francisco. That was a prominent thing in the classic series, was like, companions could come from all sorts of walks of life, between the past, the future, being
an alien.
Being an alien. Revival series, it's just kind of contemporary England that companions come from, sadly.
Yeah.
There's some kind of exceptions, but you don't even know if you can really count it. Like, Nardol's an exception. Nardole was a 12th Doctor companion who was an android. And
some people will consider Adam a companion, but he was only in for 2 episodes.
And he's still... Yeah, and he is technically an American.
Yeah.
And then you've got Jack, some people consider a companion, but he was only really there for a couple episodes.
Yeah, his spin-off series.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, I think it's pretty solid. There's some good framework in there. Paul McGann, everyone does a great performances. Even the minor people.
I mean, yeah, Will Sasso there just having a time as this acerbic mortician
who's just gone through like shit, and no one is like believing him or just like writing him off, and he's just like, okay, sure, fine, whatever.
And having heard what you said about the companions and what kind of roles they tend to fill, I think it's pretty cool how they set those two up, because I could definitely follow those two companions, because it looks like Chang Li in particular, having seen a little bit of the Seventh Doctor stuff, it seems like he would have semi-filled the role that Ace had with the Seventh Doctor.
I can see that.
I can see that.
I can see that.
I mean, think about it. They're kind of rough and tumble, rougher backgrounds, kind of thuggish.
No real family.
I could easily see Chang Li doing something like pulling some sort of setup where he somehow takes out a Dalek and is like, fooled you.
Yeah.
Boom.
With a baseball bat.
Yeah. So, yeah, no. The revival series has been going on strong now. Bit of some declines over the years in the last few years between the end of the Moffat era, the pretty contentious Chibnall era, which sadly is mostly due to Chibnall's fault. None of the cast members. They've all put in good performances with the best of what they're given. And interestingly enough, Whittaker is on her way out. This is her final season as the Doctor, the first female Doctor that's ever shown up, canonically at least.
Canonically.
And now we are going to go on to the last... it's going back into a completely new era again. The first time they've ever brought back a showrunner. The 14th Doctor will actually be managed by Russell T Davies, the guy who managed the show when it came back.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry. For those of you who do not know the process here, this is further proof positive that I must invest in a tripod of some sorts. I'm going to try and keep this grounded between the three of us, because I've been doing this sort of aileron thing, this panning thing, where I go back and forth.
Yeah.
It works. Like, it sounds good, but...
it makes it cumbersome for us.
I'm looking over at Erin, she's like, Rich, are you going to drop that?
Yeah.
I've got a decent grip back here with my fingers, but...
Yeah, let's call it that. He's holding onto a cardioid microphone.
Yeah.
So, without rambling much more about the series as a whole, I don't think I have much more input to put on this other than saying they didn't put it up against a good time slot. They
didn't put on the best network either.
Yeah, and
Nope.
the whole process of putting the film together was a nightmare from what I could see. Like, tons of scrap scripts and ideas, jumbling stuff together.
Another thing is that, speaking of jumbling stuff together in scrap scripts, one of the things that gets mentioned in the movie is how the Doctor is supposedly half human, but they never bring that up again.
Yeah.
It just kind of gets retconned.
Davies wrote it off as the Doctor lying to that one guy when he says, I'm half human on my mother's side, just so he could get to the badge. That's how Davies wrote it off in his notes. And he also said that when the Master said that, he was probably just being tricked by the TARDIS, because it was the TARDIS showing him that information. And
Yeah.
the TARDIS wouldn't like the Master, so...
TARDIS is very picky in who she likes and who she doesn't like.
Yeah.
It's episodes like this that make me kind of feel like Donnie from The Big Lebowski. Richie, you're out of your element. You're like a child that wanders in the movie theater.
Shut the fuck up, Donnie.
So, overall, I think it's solid. The score is fantastic. I think it's some of the best score work Doctor Who's done over the years, in my opinion. And, overall, if I were to give it, like, a number score, I don't know what I'd give it. Maybe a 7 out of 10.
I was gonna say 7. The other thing I wanted to mention is you can tell from the way that this is shot and filmed and put together that they are aiming towards an American audience. I could tell by the lighting that they're aiming towards an American audience, because there is slight differences in lighting technique when you go to different countries and film and cinematography. Also, I did appreciate the use of Dutch angles.
Yes.
Oh, those Dutch angles.
They're very well done.
Like, you look at stuff like that god-awful Island of Dr. Moreau movie that abused the hell out of Dutch angles and didn't know what to do. And then
Earth.
Oh no, let's not talk about that.
Oh my god. Yeah. Dalton, I don't know how he still lives with all the all the wrenches he throws
Coming in with the hook.
Coming
in with the left hook.
Blindside.
So,
but you look at the bad Dutch angles and stuff like that, and you wonder what the hell they were doing when you have that shot of 8 walking down the hall, and there's no light except to the back of him, and it's all obscured, and it tilts in and centers in right as he's in the middle of that shot, and right as he's getting close to it.
Another thing... Oh, sorry,
the way
go ahead.
they started tilting it back, too, was really cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Another thing I was going to mention is I feel like one of the weaknesses, and I'm probably going to get crucified for this, I don't feel like Eric Roberts was the best master for this role.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Because I don't feel like he's a good master.
No.
He definitely is not.
He hams it up so much that you wonder how he is as manipulative as Daulton and Erin have told me he is in other incarnations, and it's fun, but it's just so, like, in your face.
Like, if I had to choose, this is a hot take right here, if I had to choose between Eric Roberts and Missy, I'm going with Missy.
yeah, because she had some charms to her.
Yeah.
Like her absolute hatred of Clara, which I agree with, Missy.
Yeah, I agree with Missy on that one. Another thing I was going to mention, outside the cinematography and the lighting, is just the way that the film is... It's put together very well, but as I said, my biggest complaint is... My biggest complaint is Eric Roberts as the master.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Because I feel like he just doesn't put in a good performance as this, because he's just, like, overacting, and it just looks bad.
This would be over the top if he were playing Skeletor.
Yeah, it's a shame that they either A, didn't get any of their other choices for the Master to play the Master, or B, that they didn't just bring back Anthony Ainley, because his Master never actually got a proper send-off.
That's true.
Yeah.
Like, especially since... I mean, he reconstituted himself from whatever the hell remained of Abdalik's execution process, so why not just have him come back?
Which makes no sense, because when the Daleks kill someone, they're atomized and not turned into Vaseline.
Yeah.
Seriously, the goo that they put on there looks like Vaseline.
It looks like a plasticine version of the T-1000.
Yeah. So, overall... really solid. Wish I could see more of Paul McGann as the Doctor. I'm probably going to start to buy a bunch of Big Finish audio dramas after this. But, yeah, I guess I'm just going to see... what did you two think overall? Would you recommend it to our listeners?
Yes, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. I would recommend it. Just know that when you're coming in, this is not, like, standard Doctor Who fare.
Yeah.
This is an American TV movie, but it is canon. Mm-hmm. If you are coming into this as a new fan, as a new viewer, like Richie is here, it is going to take some lore and explaining, so I would say watch it with someone who already watches the show, like we did.
And
come in prepared like I did.
Also, for those wondering, the tone is very much a mixture of, in my opinion, of classic Who, with a bit of American elements sprinkled in, and some of the DNA for what would become the revival.
What would become New Who.
Bit of Star Trek.
Yeah.
Bit of Star Trek, yeah.
So, personal recommendations, if you're going to get in the Doctor Who, if you want to start with classic Who, go in at probably the 4th or the 3rd Doctor era, since you got a full thing to go with.
Yep.
3rd Doctor era, watch if you're a big fan of old British spy dramas, because it's very influenced by the British spy drama serials of the 70s, those kind of things.
Like the Avengers, for example.
Yeah. and some of the other contemporary ones. Fourth, go in if you want some very sci-fi fare that like fluctuates in tone between gothic horror and comedy. Douglas Adams was a writer for a while on that era.
Oh.
Yes.
So if you like the comedy stuff, watch some of the Douglas Adams stuffs. If you want to get a really good tone for Classic Who and general, watch City of Death. That's a great primer.
Yes.
That's
yes,
a great
I
primer.
love City of Death.
But if you want to watch something more modern, you can't bear with the pacing of the older stuff. I understand. Just start right at the beginning of the Arrival series, jump in with the Ninth Doctor. Anyone who tells you to skip 9 should not be trusted and have bad taste.
Yeah, and this, I've heard some, not complaints against 9, no complaints against 9. I've heard some people say that the first episode, if you're new to Doctor Who, can be kind of weird, like a little bit difficult to get through.
A little bit.
Push through the first episode and just keep going.
Yeah.
The Unquiet Dead comes right after. It's a perfect primer for the show.
Yes.
So, speaking as, once again, totally uninitiated, cursory notes and clips of Ace killing Daleks was all I had to go in on this. I enjoyed this. It was good, pulpy fun, although I did get the sense going into it that you really had to be my kind of nerdy to really get into this. So, if anything these two is saying is true, which it pretty much is, jump into the Revival series as your primer. If you're like me and you needed a briefer taste before you said, I'm definitely binging all of this, this isn't bad, but I have a feeling I could get the sense, I got a similar feeling from this as I did American adaptations of anime here and there. The better ones.
Yeah,
We're talking
better
like Guyver, Alita, specifically the second Guyver movie, by the way, Dalton. The first one blows.
Yeah. So, what
but
do you think, Rich? You think you'll check out Doctor Who after this?
I don't know if it's peer pressure or the fact that I'm a giant nerd, but abso-friggin-lutely.
Cool.
I already like the precedent set for this, and if it only gets weirder from here, I say, please, yes, let's go. This is reminding me of a lot of my personal favorite sci-fi media. I've mentioned Valerian and Flash Gordon specifically, but it also gives me some vague Buckaroo Banzai vibes.
Oh, okay.
If you've ever seen that
Okay.
movie.
I feel like you would probably dig Midnight. That's another great
Oh,
primer
Midnight's
episode.
another good episode.
Midnight.
Yeah.
The 2 episodes that I got one of my friends into through Doctor Who were Blink and the Girl in the Fireplace.
Girl in the Fireplace is an amazing primer for the show.
Yes, it will also rip your heart out at the end.
Yes.
That seems to be a trend with this show, honestly.
Yeah.
It's one of the historical episodes of Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's about Madame de Pompadour.
But yeah, this seems like peak sci-fi on a whole lot of levels. And by the way, speaking of shoutouts, hi Meredith. I'm glad I could finally watch this after years of college. You telling me watch this, get into Doctor Who. Shout out to my friend Meredith and her Doctor Who bag and her TARDIS keychain.
All right. Well, this one goes out to Meredith then and all the other Doctor Who fans out there. We hope you enjoyed this episode, and we don't know what it is yet, but Richie will be bringing us in for the next episode.
Yep, I've got quite a few ideas. Will it be one of my many, many Jim Jarmusch episodes? Will it be the episode where everyone has an excuse to watch The Great Mouse Detective? Who knows?
Love that movie.
I'd be willing to hold a vote if enough people were to comment down below. Wink.
Interesting.
Yes, you can vote. We actually have a little voting thing on Anchor for Spotify listeners.
And I will personally make sure to try and have a Twitter poll out.
Yeah.
Anyone can vote on the 3 or 4 movies that I'm going to have on my own Twitter under Rich F. Eckert. That includes you two, by the way.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'd love your contributions. And right now, subject to change, I'm feeling either two Jim Jarmusch movies in the form of either Ghost Dog Way of the Samurai or Dead Man, or we, like I said, we visit the underrated Disney gem The Great Mouse Detective with music by Henry Mancini.
Oh.
Or
From Friday the 13th?
No, it's Harry Manfredini.
Oh, that's Harry Manfredini. Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
He mostly did a lot of Italian Western movies, actually, believe it or not.
Oh.
No. You know what he did? The composer behind that movie is, in fact, the same one who did the Pink Panther theme song.
Oh, that's who he is.
So
yeah, this is going to be our final episode of the year. Happy holidays to all of you out there at Killer Score. We hope you have a great one with your friends or your family.
and a safe one, because things are harrowing, but rest assured, we are praying for your collective safety and your happiness this holiday season.
Yep. So watch some good movies out there for us at Killer Score. Keep yourself warm. Have some nice cocoa, some popcorn. Cuddle up with a close friend or a lover. Watch something great, and just have a fun one.
And another thing, we wish you all the best in the new year. We wish you all happy holidays. And if you're interested, you can go to our little Twitter page and buy us a coffee.
Indeed. Stay tuned also on my channel for a collaboration with an incredibly talented VA in his own right. And stay safe, my friends. We love you all.
Yep. Love you all. Have a great, great new year.